If there were ever a time where the world needed some good energy and good vibes, it is definitely right now. So I'm super, super excited to have you on the podcast, Miss Codi Jane. You are an energy healer, which I do not know much about. I don't know anything about Reiki. When I go to the spa, I want to get like a massage, and I'm like one of the dude way where you feel like if someone's not touching me, I don't feel like I'm getting any work. So kind of walk me through, what does that even mean?
Okay, so energy healing. I like to look at energy healing through the lens of our nervous system. So, the way that I work within my energy healing practice, there's this universal life force energy. It's the same thing that's beating my heart. It's the same thing that's growing the trees outside. It's this universal life force energy. And when I'm doing energy work, I really see that on a nervous system level, we're getting into the energy that is made up of our body. So, on a quantum physical level, everything is energy. And when our energy is either stuck or we have trauma that happens, right? There's a charge of energy in the body that happens that can't be discharged, then that creates blockages in the body. When that happens, energy can get stuck either, in this region where we're not connected to our heart, we're not grounded, or it can get stuck and create physical symptoms. So as an energy healer, what my practice really does is it gets in and it helps people tune into what's happening within their internal system. So being able to focus on, okay, let's leave the mind for a minute and let's tune into what's happening in my body. And like, how is my body feeling? How is my nervous system feeling? And helping people to either through sound, breath work, or energy healing and yoga movement as well, being able to consciously connect with our body in a somatic way
Wow,
to
that's
heal our whole system rather than just look at it from an intellectual perspective where we're like directly going to heal the intellect or get the massage or, be kind of disconnected from what's happening in our whole system, which is our body as well.
yeah. I always find that my mind has been my best and worst enemy at different times. I've dealt with really, really bad anxiety for most of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and until I learned how to calm myself and do breath work and all of that, I was just, I didn't want to take medicine. I didn't want to do all of that stuff. So it's so insane, but it's weird because you're actually saying taking the mind out of it. So explain how do you how do you let your body release, and how do you shut the mind down?
So that's one of the things that, we do in Reiki is it's hands-on healing. So it's touching the body, right? Some people, if they don't feel comfortable with touch, it's hovering over the body, but people still feel it.
Hmm.
And what that's doing is by bringing sensation and physical touch to the body, it takes people's awareness from their mind into physical sensation. So the sensations are what are bringing people into the body and out of the mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And then the breath work, what it's doing is it's shutting off the cognitive part of the brain when it has a lot of oxygen coming into the body. And when that analytical part of the mind goes offline, you're able to feel the physical sensations of the energy moving. You're able to feel like where there may be a block in the body. And so that's really how we get out of the mind and into the body is through sensations. And that's why touch, smell, movement, all interconnected, help to get out of the mind and tune into what's happening internally.
Why do you think it's so funny? There's obviously, you see, especially on the internet, everyone's like doing a fitness workout or doing a diet fad, and there's all these trendy things. And everyone's talking about self-care, but it doesn't really seem like there's a connection from the self-care to actual self-love. It seems like people are doing this in a weird controlling, or they're controlling what they put in their body because they want to look good for something else. Why is it so hard for us to love ourselves?
So I love this question. And this also goes back to the energy healing and the Reiki, right? So as humans, we're so focused on the external world, right? We're so focused on our external, how we look, what people think about us. All of our energy is reverted outwards, outwards, outwards. And what's so great about these other practices, breath work, Reiki, sound healing, is it gives people an opportunity to connect inwards with themselves. I find it hard for my clients or myself to have a connection and self-love if we're not meeting ourselves, if we're constantly looking outward and not giving our internal, world and ourselves that connection, the deep connection with self that we find inside when we, leave the physical world behind, then it's really hard to find and cultivate self-love that's lasting. Our internal world I really see it as beyond space and time. And when you can connect in with that part of yourself that's always whole, that's stable, that's at peace, you start to realize that the illusion is the outside. It's the stuff we're focusing so much attention on, the stuff that's going to go away or changes, right? The impermanence of life.
Is this something that you have always been attuned to, or is it something was there this kind of like aha moment? Did you go through some crazy shitty time where you like got thrown into it, or were you always kind of drawn to this vibe?
So I'll give you the short version because it can be a long
No,
story.
there's no, you
So
can give me the
a
long
lot
version.
of my work that I do now focuses on trauma and the nervous system. And when I was in, all growing up, essentially, I had a really hard childhood. There was a lot of trauma. I now see that there was a lot of trauma happening between my parents, intergenerational trauma that they hadn't healed. And at a young age, I think I was like 16, maybe 17. I first got put on antidepressants and Xanax, which is absolutely crazy to me, seeing now what I know now, of just numbing the body and not getting like a holistic approach to healing. And so through my healing journey, this is how I found the work that I do now. It took me going into college and then having a nervous breakdown and feeling that separation between me and others, knowing that I was in turmoil inside, but then again, right, looking outwards and seeing people on the outside, oh, they're so happy, they're like, getting on with college. And then internally, I was having this like battle, this depression, PTSD, and anxiety that was just like totally taking over. And it was through that suffering that brought me to kind of like my rock bottom, right? Where I started going to therapy, and then I hit this wall and I was like, I understand what you're saying. Like, I understand everything, but I still don't feel good. Right. It was just this like,
You
okay, we're
can,
going to
yeah,
just keep talking about the
yeah.
past. Like, it wasn't really getting anywhere. And
Well,
it
you can
wasn't
grasp a
until,
concept on a logical scale,
yeah,
but yeah.
logically it all made sense. I was like, okay, makes sense, but why am I still sad? Why do I still feel like I'm crawling in my skin? Like, why am I still feeling these physical symptoms of anxiety, and distress? And it wasn't until I found, this yin yoga class where it was, a couple postures, holding them, feeling the sensations, being able to breathe through them and really sit with discomfort in a container that felt safe for me to process what was being carried in my body, which goes back to all the work that I do now. And that's kind of how I found, my internal wellspring of healing was by tuning inward, to these practices that connect body, heart, and mind together, rather than just focusing on the external or focusing purely on the intellect from a healing standpoint.
Wow, that's amazing. So I was a professional dancer. So when you're talking
Oh,
about
wow.
holding kind of, and I grew up and I was not a flexible kid, and I made it my goal to now I'm like incredibly flexible. But I
Uh-huh.
would sit in front of the TV, and it was like I'd be like really high off the ground, then it'd get lower and lower, and there was within kind of that pain and
Mm-hmm.
focus, there was a weird clarity that kind of focused you. So it is interesting to see you connecting that. And for me, like I'm very much a physical in my body person. So all of
Yeah.
this completely resonates with me. So when did you take an official class to learn the techniques?
So what happened was I just went to a class. There was like this sign. I was living in Venice Beach.
Of
It
course.
was like right near the beach. There's this sign that said, "You are precious," like a week of yoga for $20. And I was like, it was just, it felt like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was like, come to this place, come to this class. And I walked in and I took classes. I took classes for, I think it was probably close to a year. And then I ended up from there getting trained from Kripalu, which is a yoga, health, and wellness nonprofit out in Massachusetts.
Wow, that's amazing. So who was your or when was your first client? Or did you is it something that you can work on yourself? Because I always wonder, it's like if you're the one who's always putting out all this energy for other
Mhm.
people. They always say, the cobbler's kids have no shoes. It's like who's the one who's treating you and how do you take care of
Who's
yourself?
taking care of
Yeah.
me? Yeah. It's funny. So, like, one of the things that I love that's like such a great self practice is breath work.
Mm.
Like, even before I hopped on this interview, I felt, all this energy was moving through, and I was like, I should do some breath work so that I can get grounded, I can get centered. So, breath work is a practice I return to constantly. And then I also have this girl, Drew. She owns a company called Five Sense Collective.
Hmm.
She's also a Reiki practitioner, sound healer. She does body work. And her and I exchange services. She's like my sister. So I go to her to get some body work. And then I also have, I wouldn't call him a therapist. He does somatic based work. He's kind of like my mentor.
Hmm.
His name's Dr. Omid. And when I have a bunch of things that I'm working through and I'm wanting to process, he goes through basically what I do, a very similar approach, which is a somatic based approach. So we're talking, and if there's something that I'm working through that, is bringing me into a place where I'm getting stuck in the mind, he integrates it into the body by doing this somatic practice where he gets me to leave the monkey mind and start to focus internally on what's going on inside of my body. And then when I get to this place of peace and groundedness, we know that I've integrated whatever that is that I've been working through. Very similar to what I do with clients.
So give me like a quick overview, like what you were talking about doing breath work before you got on. What is like just some easy thing that anyone could do in like a quick, approach?
Yeah. So, in a quick approach, what I would guide people to do is if they feel safe to close their eyes, right? That helps us to take away some of that sensory input of what's going on around us and helps us to right away focus on, okay, what am I feeling? And then so just taking a moment to just notice, like, am I feeling tightness in my stomach? Am I feeling, is my heart racing? And just kind of taking a second to notice. And then from there, with the hands, so say, maybe the stomach's tight, maybe the heart's racing, just taking your hands and placing them on that area so that the body knows that it's being responded to, so that it feels safe. This is a trauma technique that's used, just touch with awareness. And then from there, I would guide them to do a simple, really simple breath work technique, which is taking an inhale through the nose. So you could do that at like a count of 3. So inhaling through the nose and then holding the breath, and then exhaling. We want to double the exhale or even more. So then slowly exhaling out the mouth for, say, a count of 6. And then do that, for a couple of rounds, maybe 5 rounds. So then taking another deep inhale through the nose for a count of 3, holding the breath, and then slowly exhaling out the mouth for a count of 6. And then taking another deep inhale for a count of 3, And softening the body while you're doing that. Softening the face, softening the shoulders. And then on the exhale, really feeling the support beneath you, right? So noticing where you're sitting. And then very slowly exhaling out the mouth. And we'll just do one more round, taking a deep breath in through the nose. And then very slowly exhaling out the mouth, softening, releasing, dropping your awareness into the physical sensations of the body. And that's just a really quick tool that anybody can use at any moment to down-regulate the nervous system.
I can feel my
Sends
stomach.
a signal.
My stomach started to gurgle and do, like, I always know that when I'm like amped up for something and I do
Yeah.
that and I focus on it, especially with having that feedback of having your hand on you. I'll feel my stomach just going.
And that's even like energy moving. It's like the body's starting to discharge. It's like releasing. All of that's great feedback of the body, calming down.
So you originally were saying how, it's funny that you said exactly how I think of the universe. And, I was raised very strict Catholic, religious. There's not much room for interpretation there. It's kind of spoon-fed to you, like, this is what you're supposed to believe, this is what you do. But you see the power of prayer, and you see the power of all your people coming together. And I've never attributed that to the actual religion. Like, I'm not a super religious person, but we are all balls of energy that are walking around. And there is something to be said about that. I know this sounds very like California and Venice, and this is when I guess when people say I'm spiritual, I hope this is what they mean. But it is interesting that, and it's the same thing when you meet somebody. There is an energy between you, or there's not an energy between you. You can definitely feel that. Would that be what you would call God?
Exactly. I think that God, this universal life force source, is inside all of us, and it connects all of us to each other. That energy that we either connect to or we don't. I think when we don't connect to people, it's not that we're not connecting to God. I think it's really that our nervous system doesn't feel safe. But that feeling of connection that we feel when we're with people, even if it's just this like little glimmer of like seeing yourself in somebody else, which I think happens a lot, right? Even when someone's telling a story or sharing something about themselves, to me, that's what God is. It's this energy that connects all of us. And I really see it as we're all one on a quantum physical level. Everything's energy. And, when it's, all pushed together, we see this like solid structure. But the energy that connects us, to me, is this experience of God. And that energy, it has no biases. It doesn't have, labels. It doesn't cause separation. It's the mind, to me, that does that. When we get too stuck in our mind and we're not fully embodied. I think when we're in our body and we're in our heart and we feel safe to be in our body and in our heart, then we can feel this like connection with other people, with ourselves. And to me, that's what's experiencing God. That's what God is.
That's amazing. And I've seen that you do, not really retreats, but you kind of set up these amazing spaces and do these gatherings. How do you, like, first of all, do people just, like, is it a group of people? Is it a one-on-one? Like, what's the normal format you practice in?
So my format that I practice in, I do one-on-ones here in my healing studio in Topanga Canyon. We also do group sound healing sessions in my backyard. I have a deck that overlooks these beautiful mountains, and it's almost like it's an escape from the city. That's what I hear a lot.
If people have never been to Topanga, first off, it makes sense that you're an energy healer
Yeah.
in Topanga. Totally makes sense. Also, one of the most beautiful little jewels that not a lot of people, because they're driving up the PCH and you kind of cruise, or you're on the 101 and you kind of cruise past it on both sides. It is such a little beautiful jewel in the middle of this kind of crazy metropolis.
Exactly. So it's like a little escape. So I do those sessions here. And then I also work with that company, Five Sense Collective, that I told you about. And they have a dome that overlooks the ocean in Malibu. And we do group sessions there. Right now, we're just doing private groups. But what that looks like is usually at max around 8 people. And we have sound bowls in there. We do sound healings. I'll lead breath work, and we'll go around and we'll do hands-on Reiki. It's kind of a combination of all three modalities. And I love working in collaboration with those women because they've created this beautiful, beautiful, you know, uh, sacred space essentially to heal and to all come together in community with the same, common thread, which is they're coming to expand, they're coming to release, they're coming to grow, to heal. So it's a really special group of women that I love collaborating with.
I feel like a couple hundred years ago, you probably would have been called a witch.
Seriously, it's funny. One of my friends from college, it's like I met this girl, and she's friends with one of these girls that I used to go to college with, and she told me that you're a witch. I was like, oh my gosh, I guess like a modern witch or something.
You're a modern witch. Yeah, you're allowed to make money. Before they would just burn you. So now
Exactly. Before they would be like, yeah, exactly.
you would be completely crazy. It would be heresy, and now people come and you can have a lifestyle and build a living off of it.
Exactly.
Not a bad trade.
Yeah.
So what is your daily practice for yourself? Do you have a gratitude ritual? For me, I just started a gratitude journal, especially in these times of craziness. It was, I've always had it, been conscious of it, but now just journaling it has been a big thing, especially in, the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get caught up on all the shit that's going wrong, or all the, the things you can't do. And it's, for me, it's a reminder like, okay, you got this. Like, here are the things that are good in your life. You have an amazing son, you have this, you have that, you have your health. So what's something that you do?
So it's funny that you talk about the gratitude list because I got this journal that literally says gratitude on it. It
It's
sits right
amazing.
next to my bed.
See, the
That's kind
energy
of
is so good. We're just,
Yeah, that's like my nightly practice.
hmm
So like my gratitude journal says like, what is something good? Like, what are the good things that happened today? And then it says, what can you look forward to tomorrow as a way to kind of prepare for tomorrow. But, every day, even if it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if I can sit down and meditate or do breath work, either one of those is something that I have to find time to do every day. And if I'm not doing it every day, I'm human, so there's times where I don't, but I can feel when I'm out of my practice
mm
and those feelings of like discomfort of, oh, like all the things that are wrong and, like, which is, the world, there's so much going on right now. So it's only normal to have that experience. But when I'm feeling like out of center, ungrounded, like with not as much gratitude as I normally feel, I know that there's either something I'm working through, or that I need to get back to my practice, or I need to practice more. And even I just do like hands-on self-healing, like in my
hmm
meditation practice, kind of similar to what I led you through. So yeah, my daily practice is definitely breath work and meditation with hands-on healing.
Do
And then
you,
sometimes I'll
sorry.
journal if I feel like there's a lot on my mind. But that's kind of my daily go-to.
Do you feel like, 'cause this is the next question that everyone's going to ask, is there a specific diet that you feel like works better to keep yourself mindful? Is it something that obviously everyone is different, everyone has different needs?
Yeah.
But do you, like you personally, what do you feel like is the best way that you can feel, like you're sated and you're open
Yeah.
for this and,
Yeah,
where you can be your best?
definitely. So I tried all different things. I was vegan for a while. I was vegetarian. I really think it's like mindful eating. I
hmm
think eating a lot of vegetables, like primarily, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, And if you feel like you need meat, like really listen to yourself. Like it's all about, you know, like I've been talking about this whole time, like really listening to the body and finding that intuitive, mindful place where you're feeling into, am I overeating? Like, is my body feeling full? Am I under eating? Am I not feeling, you know, fed? So it's, you know, I think that mindful eating overall and just listening to what your body's needing. I love juicing. Juicing is something I do, you know, a lot. I think juicing's great.
What's your
Taking
go-to
time to
juice?
do, I love celery juice. I
Every,
know that it's like
everyone's
such a
on this.
fad right now. I know it's such a fad, but celery juice makes me feel amazing. I think it's like a great detox.
What are the
And
benefits
it
of
feels,
celery juice? I know this, but like I would love just share with me what the benefits, just so everyone could listen. And because I know that celery juice, I've seen a lot of people doing it, and it's not a new
yeah.
thing. It's definitely not a new thing.
It's no, it's
No.
not a new thing. Thank you. The what is he called? The medical medium or whatever for the celery juice. But
Yeah.
for me, what I see is it helps my digestion, it helps my skin, it helps with hydration. And those are kind of the benefits that I see personally, like hydration, my digestive stuff, and skin. Just like I think it purifies the whole body essentially.
Is it something you get up and you do a juice right out of the way, like right out of the gate, or do you? For me, like I'm fasting most of the day, so I'll get up and do water, lemon with like a pinch of salt, and then coffee until like 1 or 2.
Hmm.
Is this something you do the celery juice in the morning, or what's your routine?
Yeah, celery juice in the morning. I'm very, very similar to you. I don't eat until around usually, like on my daily, you know, schedule around 1 or 2 myself.
Hmm.
So I'll drink celery juice in the morning, sometimes first thing if it's not water first thing. And then after that, you know, kind of processes through my body. Then sometimes I'll have coffee, and then I'll start eating around like 1, 2 o'clock.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is funny. Like when you talk about just being conscious, I'm always talking to people because about being conscious about what you're putting in your body. And it's like no diet, you know, there's probably, I would say this, there's probably a bunch of vegans that should probably have meat and people who eat too much meat that should have more vegetables. We all need more vegetables in our diet. That's, you know, goes without saying.
Yeah.
But if you are thinking about what you're eating and you're actually sitting down and taking time, this is something like whenever I'm doing a shoot, I'll always make people sit down, take time, respect the food. Because I don't, you know, we're always in a car, or we're going somewhere else, and we're just shoving
Hmm.
food in our face, and it's terrible for your digestion. You're
Yeah.
not respecting the food, and you're not going to get the most out of it eating it that way, just for a myriad of reasons. So I love that
Yeah.
you're on the conscious eating kick. We need to get more people into that should be the next diet,
Right?
just like the conscious cookbook or something.
Seriously. And like the gratitude, like what we were talking about before, like I'll put my hands over the food and just like give gratitude for the food, all of the hands that touched the food that made it possible for it to be on my plate. And just feeling like, does this make me feel good when I'm eating it?
Yeah,
And
I
I
say
think it really goes down to that. Like, how do I feel when I'm eating the food I'm eating?
I do that where like I'll say a little prayer before my son and I will have dinner, and I kind of make, you know, awareness to where the food came from, how lucky we are to have this food. And then he's cute
Hmm.
because he says amen.
Amen.
I'm like, sure, if you want to say amen, go for it.
What a great ritual.
It's
That's
pretty.
awesome that you're doing that with him. I think
It,
it's so important for like the people that are conscious with their children to create these type of rituals since they're really the future of our planet,
and
essentially.
well, that's the thing is I'm sure you did not. Seeing you had a tumultuous childhood, and I had a very tumultuous childhood that was abusive and crazy, and you know my father was an alcoholic. So there's a lot of
Yeah,
kind of
same.
traumas. Yeah, there was a lot of trauma that gets you to this place. But what is the best path? You know, everyone shouldn't have to go through the fire to get to the other side. So what is the best path that you can kind of lead, especially guys, because guys won't come to stuff like this right
Yeah.
away. I'm sure the majority of your clients are women
Hmm.
because they're more apt to admit that they have a problem or something's going on, and guys want to kind of just like push it all away, which I'm sure is even worse for all that energy. How do you get guys involved in this world? You know, how do we get everyone involved? But specifically, how do you get more men uh, to become aware?
I honestly think like one of the gateways that I see, like I see like more men doing breath work.
Mm.
And for some reason, it's like
Well,
our breath.
Wim Hof made it kind
Wim
of,
Hof. I
yeah.
know. Thank you, Wim Hof.
Thank you, Wim Hof, for your crazy ice baths and breathing. And then like, oh, he's in the ice and he's being a man. So like, that's the funny thing.
Exactly.
It has to be something that's like, yeah, he's so macho, he can sit in the freezing water. And the guys are like, I can do that. That's cool.
Yeah. And like we all breathe, right?
Sure.
So I think like the breath work for men is like a great entry point. Just like consciously connecting with your breath can shift everything. It can put you in, like if you're in a fight or flight response, which so many people are right now with everything that's going on in the world, if you can consciously connect with your breath, your life force, then you can shift your nervous system, you can shift your outlook like almost instantly. So I think for men, like breath work is really a great pathway for them. And also when I see, and this isn't any judgment, but there's so many healers that will focus on women.
Mm.
And I really think that if more women opened up their offerings and didn't focus so much on women, that could also really help men feel safe coming into their container for healing. So I think it's an overall just like shift of being aware of like how we're even like offering our services. But breath work I found to be where I have more male clients, where I see other men getting trained in breath work. There was all women when I did my, I think, yeah, when I did my yoga teacher training, it was all men with 2 guys. And then my breathwork training, I want to say it was probably like, maybe it was like 30-40% men, which I was like, wow. But the teacher was also male, who was my breathwork teacher, David Elliott. And so I think that also helps. Just men seeking other men that are doing these offerings as an entry point for their own safety, maybe.
Do you use any sort of technology, or it's funny, like, so you were always talking about you can feel the effects of breath work. Like I don't have it on right now, but usually I have like a Whoop or like some kind of wearable that will give me heart rate feedback, and and I'll watch it live and I'll start to breathe, and then like I play a little game with myself of like how low I can. It's such a dude thing to do also.
Yeah.
It's just like I have to gamify it. Is there any piece of technology, or is it just one of those things that you should probably learn how to listen to your body?
I don't use anything. I feel like it's just like learning to listen to the body, to the language of the body, which is like sensation. How's my body feeling? Can I feel my heart racing? Like, am I sitting and my heart's racing? Am I in traffic and my heart's racing? Am I looking at, my screen or the news and is my heart starting to race? Like any of these things, and seeing that as, like a trigger point. And how can I, in that moment, be conscious enough to start to shift my breathing pattern and just slow my breathing down? And it's like forming this intimate relationship with your whole entire system. And I think it takes away from that level of like, do I have to check something? Am I like focusing on, relying on technology to be the thing to tell me? I think it really helps. I know
Guilty.
it really helps deepen that connection with ourselves when we can learn to really like listen to the body.
But
But
you do have an app,
I do, yeah.
so
Um,
technology is not something that's
so
completely divorced from the practice.
seriously. So that's the thing I love about technology. So, everything that's been happening in the world, it's, kind of forced us into this place of adapting to technology, being able to offer virtual offerings, which I think is amazing because it's connecting people from all over the world, right?
Especially now.
So I'm on a Chopra app. Deepak Chopra has an app, and it has
I've heard of him.
everything that you would need for healing. And that can also be a great way for, men, anybody to also have a practice. It's at you just pop in your earbuds, you can be in the comfort of your own home, and you can access, meditations, sound healings, all different things that you need for your health and your spiritual health and well-being on the app, which I think is so amazing.
Do you have sleep meditations? That's been my new thing, is I've been all about the app Calm. I have a friend who works for the company, and so then I just kind of got hooked into it. And I started, because falling asleep for me is the hardest. I don't know why. I used to be able to like fall asleep super fast, and now it's like I'll think about every stupid thing in the world, like, and then I'll start to think, well, how do we fall asleep? And what is it like? It's just, and then of course your brain, it's this infinite loop of trying to figure out how does the body actually fall asleep, and when you're asleep, what is actually happening to your brain? Like, this is the way that my analytical stupid brain works, and kind of just does this. So having that meditation, having someone kind of guide me through that is super helpful. Is there a sleep-based thing that you have?
On the Chopra app, there are sleep meditations. I don't lead them personally, but they have them on the app. And something I'm working on now that I've been, kind of pushed into this virtual space, which I actually think is a blessing. I'm starting to create and cultivate my own guided meditations, breath works, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put them. I might offer them on my website. I might do it through Teachable. But I am looking forward to creating things that people can download and that cover different topics: sleep, mindfulness, heart-centered practices, sound healing, breath work for different things, breath work for anxiety, breath work for depression, breath work, just to find your center, almost like a library of things that people can access. So that's to come. But for right now, the Chopra app, where I have my sound healings on, that's a great app also for some sleep meditations.
So explain sound healing, because I know there's a lot of different forms, and there's bowls, and there's things, and what is actually happening to the brain through the sounds?
So the sound bowls, they have frequencies. So like every instrument has a frequency, essentially. And what the instrument is doing, so while I'm playing the sound bowl, it's emitting a frequency, a harmonic frequency. So the frequency in the bowl has harmony. And then what happens is that frequency that's emitting a harmonic frequency allows our brain to sync up to that frequency. Which can help our brain get to levels of, the brain that it may not have access to in that moment. So when our brainwave finds the harmony of the sound healing, it will sync up to that. And then it allows us to go into what's known as alpha brainwave state, which is more of a, calm frequency. And then it can even downshift to theta, which is more of like a deeply meditative frequency through a thing called entrainment. So it's basically brainwave frequency connects to sound wave frequency. That's the most simple way to put it.
That's amazing. So I've always wondered, I know I've had a rough idea of how it worked, and I guess it's kind of, is it similar to when everyone ohms in a class and it's like kind of a uniting thing, and it's like put us all in the, okay.
Exactly.
I'm getting
And it even happens to our body. Our body's made of mostly water. And so energetically, it's finding harmony in our bodies within our energy system as well.
It's so funny that I'm even having this conversation, because I used to always bag on people who were like, I'm into energy and I'm spiritual and I have I have all these crystals around my house. Wait, do you have crystals? Tell me about the crystals.
I do have crystals. It's funny, I have some sitting with me right now next to my candles.
All right, what are the go-to what are the go-to crystals?
I love rose quartz. That's probably my go-to. It's a heart crystal. And I don't keep it with me always, but I'll create little altars almost as just like to remind me of the energy that I'm trying to cultivate, which is like a heart-centered energy, open, receptive, willing to receive. And each, crystal has a different meaning, but that's really my go-to would probably be rose quartz. I love rose quartz.
My son, when he was in my ex's stomach, it's funny, she gave me a present of when she told me that we were pregnant. She was pregnant. I always say we were pregnant. I don't know why guys do that.
That's good though.
But I wanted to be a dad since day one. So I was like super jazzed about it. But I had these little shoes, these little Converse, these little white Converse were the first indication I knew he was on his way. And we used to put a crystal in his shoe, and then we put it by, like, during the full, because she was very much into this.
Uh-huh.
During like the full moon, we would have the crystal in the like windowsill recharging. I don't know,
Recharging.
recharging
Yeah.
the. I don't even know. If you 5 years ago, I'd be like, "You're crazy. What's going on?" But you know what? He turned out to be the most beautiful, perfect, awesome child. So maybe it's the crystals, maybe it's me. I don't know. I don't know.
And
I
the
don't want to.
intention too,
Yeah.
right? Like our intention has a lot of power when we have like awareness behind it. So that's awesome.
So how do the crystals work then?
So the crystals, just like people, like their energy as well, and they each have different properties. And for me, I don't really look at like how do crystals work. Again, it's like more of like how do I feel with the
Mm.
crystals? Like, is this to me, it's like a physical representation of like an intention for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you have to get me out of dude brain of like I need to know that it's doing something.
Yeah. Um, I think that some people might have like a deeper understanding of what the crystals do, but for me, it just serves as like a physical representation for an intention that I have. And that the energy of the crystal, so like this one, the intention behind it or the properties of it are love. And so when I'm using this on a client, that intention is being infused in whatever it is that I'm doing. Or like
So
if I'm sitting here, talking to you and I have this rose quartz crystal, the intention is that when I'm talking to you, I'm coming from a place where my heart's open, I'm wanting to connect, I'm receptive.
So it's
So that's kind of what
basically a
they do for me.
physical representation of the consciousness that you want to have with it.
Exactly.
Got it, got it, got it.
Yeah.
So what is something that you learned about yourself during this pandemic?
Something I learned, surrender.
Mm,
I mean, my practice is always to surrender, but even more so, it's like, what do I have control over, and what do I need to surrender into? And what I've learned is the only thing I really have control over is myself, is how I feel, is how I perceive what's going on, how I'm going to show up, how I'm going to take care of myself, and that if I can, throughout this pandemic, continue to use, the isolation, the, spending more time at home in a constructive way, then that's going to help me essentially adapt
mm.
so that I can use what can seem to be traumatic, right? Like having to separate from people, to tune inward and focus on my own healing, like whatever the pandemic is bringing up, using that as a tool for my self-healing and to be able to hold more space for other people during this time.
I love that. It's one of those things that I learned through many, many years of therapy was like all the shit's gonna still happen. It's all gonna be the way that it's going to be, and it's
Mm-hmm.
however that you decide to react to it. And then once that little like thing was unlocked in my brain, I was like, oh, I actually do have, because you feel so powerless in so many different
Yeah.
situations, and then you realize, oh wait, no, I have the ability to kind of like shut this off or focus my energy in one way or another. And once you kind of unlock that in your brain, it's really kind of life changing.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Changes
who
everything.
totally changes everything. Who are your heroes?
My heroes. Who are my heroes?
These are
Wow,
five questions I always ask everybody, and I just love to hear
yeah,
like the different. Yeah,
that's a great question. You know, One of my heroes, I think, is Sarah, the yoga teacher that
Mhm.
I first met. She came to me, and it was the first person that I really felt like saw me for who I was. And she was, a huge angel on my healing path. The way that she shared her own trauma so openly and vulnerably, and was able to help me feel safe in my body, to own my story, and to feel confident, moving through all of the trauma that I had experienced. She's really, I guess, like if I think about my heroes, one of my biggest heroes. because I don't think I would be where I am today if I hadn't met her. She changed everything for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What is your most treasured possession?
Possession? My sound bowls, maybe? Yeah. If I think about possessions, yeah, probably my sound bowl.
I knew that would be an interesting, being such a spiritual person, asking you about a possession. I knew that would be a kind of a curveball for you. So
Yeah. My sound bowls, probably.
your sound bowls.
Yeah.
And what are you most afraid of?
What am I most afraid of? Uh, Being seen. I know that that might sound crazy, but it's like in this, world of like the virtual space, I love being like behind the scenes. A lot of my work that I do has all been from like people referring other people. And it's just this, like, it feels like this really spiritual kind of like natural flowing, beautiful thing that's happened for me. But I'm not one. And that's why, like, thank you so much for asking me to come on this podcast. It really pushed me beyond a comfort zone, which I really am starting to step into. But I think my biggest fear is being like, I don't like, I guess being seen. Yeah.
That's so interesting. You're so good. That's the crazy thing is you are so grounded and poised that I would not think that this is something that bothered you at all. But that being said, obviously what you do is such an intimate, close literally hands-on practice that
Yeah.
there probably is that little element of kind of, not wanting to be out there, in the public essentially.
Yeah, it's something about like, like putting stuff out on Instagram and all of that, where it's so much sensory overload.
Yeah.
For me, even just like being on Instagram, I'm like, whoa, like so much, so much. But I too, it's like, thank you for, reflecting that back to me. I think sometimes it's the things that we're most afraid of that are our biggest gifts. It's just like stepping into them and finding those opportunities where we can push past our discomfort, to see that the things that we're really scared of are actually sometimes our biggest gifts.
Wow. So, I think that's a beautiful place to end that. And where can everybody find you?
So everybody can find me on Instagram at Codi Jane, CODIJANE, or my website, which is also codijane.com. You can also find me at Frequency Mind, which is a breathwork website where they host virtual classes. There'll be on-demand classes. And you can also find me on the Chopra app.
That's amazing. Ms. Codi Jane, you have such an amazing energy, and I am so, so happy to have really shared this time with you, and you shared this time with me. It's been amazing, and I could talk to you for hours and hours on end. I'm sure I'll have you on again, but thank you for being so generous with your time, and have a lovely day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Hope to talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day.